Hello and welcome to another episode of the Simon and Friends podcast. I'm Simon Short. Joining me this week is Josh Limesand. Josh, welcome back in, man. How you doing?
Doing great. We're a full month into the season now. We know some things about teams. So it's been fun watching football.
It already feels like it's going too fast. And
Oh, for sure.
I have never been the week two catastrophizing it's almost over sort of person when it comes to doing this, but I can feel I guess it's because I could feel like week four does really feel like okay, things are like really solidifying now.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco is being benched.
Mhm.
Russell Wilson has been benched. We're turning the tide. We'll get to some Shadur Sanders thoughts later, but some key injuries are also kind of formulating, unfortunately, right? Like some guys that are going on like either season-ending IR or like we know like officially where some teams are saying because there's always that initial wave of injuries right at the beginning, and we kind of they're the ones we always end up forgetting about when we tell the story at the end of the year. So we're
Yeah.
just in this point where that like months long attrition has set in, and now we feel like all the new stuff is done, and we're just in it. So it's a lot of fun. It's also, I mean, the injuries aren't fun, but it's also the perfect time for our power rankings update. So Josh is here as he is every month for our power rankings. This is 2.0. Again, right now we all have week four fresh in our minds. Right now we're thinking about what the Browns are going to be like with Gabriel or Jackson Dart, or oh my gosh, the Chargers blew that game to the Giants, or oh my gosh, the Ravens are going to be without Lamar Jackson for 2 weeks. But this is what power rankings are. This is what has happened totality for the last 4 weeks.
Yep.
And Josh and I will present where these teams are 4 full weeks into the season and talk about it as a whole. So our rankings aren't just what happened this week or what's going to happen next week. It's this first month of the season. How did it go? And Josh, I got to say, when this is the first year we've done it where I know your answers ahead of time, and then you see
Mhm.
mine when I put mine in. We're pretty consensus, man. This is one
This
of our cleanest, I
this
think,
is
rankings we've
impressive.
had. I will say of our top 15 teams, we have exactly the same, just slightly different order.
Yep.
The teams that we both kicked out of our second tier it will be funny. You'll see it when we get there. And then even in our bottom 16, like everyone's kind of tiered off in the same range. So we're not seeing this too differently from each other. I don't know if it's because we've been podcasting together for 4 years at this point, or just because maybe everybody will agree with this. So, what anything stand out to you when we were doing it this time, or did it all feel pretty straightforward?
Well, to me, and we'll talk about one of my teams that I'm going to mention here pretty close to the beginning. I feel like after 4 weeks, as everything stands, I've almost narrowed it down to like five legitimate contenders, maybe six before the Lamar Jackson injury, but
Hmm.
depending on how long he's out. But there are few teams that I see as potentially dominant forces. Now, I'm a big fan of get to the playoffs, anything can happen. I've been that way since I was a kid. Just
Yep.
got to get my Vikes to the playoffs, and then you never know what can happen, right? I am the eternal optimist in that regard. But if I'm using my analytical brain, I see a small handful of contenders um, after these first 4 weeks. Again, lots can change, but there's a few teams that I think are cream of the crop. And so that's the first thing I noticed. Like I felt pretty confident with the top end of my list. And then I can't wait to get till I get to my biggest mover later on because they have a long way to go, but it's exciting. So
I wrote down all my pluses and minuses. I'm still trying to figure. I don't remember exactly who my biggest mover was. We have the yearly like okay, Joe Burrow gets hurt, so the Bengals have to be adjusted pretty heavily.
yeah,
Oh, there's a big mover. Yeah, that's right. Okay,
I
we'll
think
we'll
we have the
we'll get
same
to it.
big mover because we're only one apart on my
Yeah,
biggest.
no, we're in lockstep with a lot of these things. So let's get right down to it. But before we do, I guess that's not getting right down to it. But let's get to this next thing here. If you're here on YouTube, thank you all so much for being on YouTube again. We are here on YouTube. Every episode of the Simon and Friends podcast is now on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. Appreciate it. Thank you all so much for being here. If you're on audio, you're not going to miss out too much, but know that on YouTube, you will be able to see the graphics of our rankings the whole time. So if you would ever get lost in the who did they say was for? Where was my team? How did I miss that? There's also a visual aid to go along with it if you so choose to be there. Along with this YouTube channel, make sure you're over on Box Score Network as well. You're visiting all these pods individually, as well as seeing what we put on the YouTube channel, Box Score Network on YouTube. And these are our individual podcasts, tricky takes, Odds on favorite slash 70 chip cast with Robertson and Ben doing their Commanders talk. Ben on Pro Football Enterprises does a bunch of cool shows over there. If you need what's happening in soccer, because CONCACAF is still putting out pods. And then Tricky Takes is over on YouTube as well, but they are covering NFL and MLB right now. And Two Peas on a Pod. They are doing their weekly NFL recaps, and they're also doing the Waiver Wire show as part of their episode. But if you need fantasy football waiver wire advice, you can check that out on Tuesday mornings from Two Peas on a Pod.
Simon,
So,
that's why football season's moving so fast right now. It's because once you get into fantasy mode, you watch football through Monday night, and then Tuesday you have to think about the waiver wire.
that's
There's
it.
really only one day, that's Wednesday, and then Thursday you're planning your lineup already. So the weeks move real fast because of that.
Just you just gave me a summation of my entire life and unlocked that for me. Who needs therapy? Josh is here to help you figure out why your life is chaos between
That's right. That's why it's
fantasy
flashing
football
before
and
your
the
eyes.
NFL. Yep, that's it. All right, here we go. Let's get into our ranks, Josh. So if you're here on YouTube, you can see our entire top eight, top tier here, and we have all the same teams. So we have the Philadelphia Eagles atop the rank, unchanged. This was our number one in our preseason rank as the Super Bowl champs. It's not as pretty as you would like it or they would like it, but they are 4-0. They've beaten
Mhm.
the Cowboys, Chiefs, Rams, and Bucks. That's three quality teams
Really
and
good
a
teams.
really, really good offense in the Cowboys. They're 12th in DVOA, 16th on offense, 14th on defense, ninth in point differential. I will say I think the guard play, you can see the difference, and that's where a lot of the run game is. Landon Dickerson's been banged up all season. Tyler Steen is a step down from Mekhi Becton so far over at right guard. And their new offensive coordinator, whose name I did not write down, he's not calling a lot of big potential pass plays. Like I don't know if it's his personal style or just where the team is at, but it's they're just happy, just kind of rolling along, chugging along, and relying
Mhm.
on that Super Bowl medal to help them get over the hump in these close games against good teams. But do you have any big thoughts on the Eagles here, Josh?
No, it's just when you're the reigning champs and you're 4-0 and your schedule has not been easy, you get to stay in the top spot. They have one turnover on the year, and they've even rushed for under 100 yards the past couple of games, and they've still found ways to win. That's what winning teams do. They get a blocked punt at the end of it to steal one from the Rams. So with with nothing crazy happening, with no losses happening, they get to stay in the top spot for now. I will agree with you. You said it's been a little bit inconsistent. It hasn't been the dominance that you'd expect, but again, that proof of concept's there. I don't think their division's as strong as I thought it was going to be at the beginning or before the season as well. So I'm really not, especially at this point, I'm not afraid or worried that they're going to lose any hope or any. They're not going to lose the division this year. And so they're pretty much steady eddies, and so they'll probably drop a couple games here and there. But this team is already getting ready for the playoffs now and another Super Bowl run. So you get that
The
benefit of the
uh,
doubt.
the Buffalo Bills both are for each of us move up two spots into the number two overall slot here. They're 4-0. They've beaten the Ravens, Jets, Dolphins, and Saints. Third in point differential on the season. So they're beating up on these mostly bad teams that they've played. Sixth in DVOA, first on offense, just 22nd on defense. So that defense is starting pretty slow right now. But those are some, decent offenses when you think about the different things that those groups can do. Um, but they've sustained a couple injuries on the defensive line as well. So,
Yeah.
you would hope that defense will kind of positively regress back to the mean closer to where they were last year. But this is an elite offense with a quarterback once again just playing at the top of his game, and the run game is once again excellent. So everything is carrying over for this offense, and yeah, number two for both of us.
They're rushing for over 163 yards every game. And so I wrote like this is a dream situation for them. They can keep being consistent, staying on the field, running the ball well. And then if a team sells out to stop them, they have Josh Allen back there. And so their offense is pretty close, as close to unstoppable as you can see or as you can have. And then, their defense now has time to figure it out because they're 4-0 as well. There's no threats to the Bills. They have a tough schedule coming up, but they'll be right in every game. So, yeah, that was an easy one for me as well after what happened over the first few weeks.
Our first difference here is at number three. I have the Kansas City Chiefs at number three. Josh has them at number four. Again, for viewers on YouTube, I have the far left column. Josh has the middle column. We'll make our consensus ranking in the right hand column there. Josh, I'm just going to give the lowdown on the Chiefs. I feel
Okay.
like you're going to kind of mostly agree with me. I'll kind of briefly talk about why I also have them ahead of the Packers because I actually flip-flopped them coming out of week four. I had the Packers ahead of the Chiefs going into week four. but then I want you to come in and talk to me about why you have the Rams so high. So the
Oh
Chiefs
yeah.
are 2-2. They've beaten the Giants and the Ravens. They lose to the Eagles and Chargers. They're eighth in DVOA, seventh on offense, 13th on defense, seventh in point differential. Analytically speaking, it's nothing we didn't expect. I think those are pretty good numbers. Xavier Worthy going out early in week one stalled a lot of what I expected for this offense. I mean, I said they were going to come out hot, attack downfield. Mahomes was my preseason MVP pick. But with Tyquan Thornton emerging and Worthy returning, they might be finding that groove now. Mahomes' intended air yards per pass attempt is currently 7.8, which is his highest since 2020, and the first time it's been above 7 since 2022. So now that Worthy's kind of back, Thornton kind of emerged, Hollywood Brown is in the fold. They are pushing the ball down the field again, and that was a big thing. So now they're 2-0 in their last two games. We see what that downfield attack is like, and that skeleton what I kind of expected. And so them kind of being on a little bit of run. Meanwhile, the Packers, who I spoke very highly of last time around and have for the last couple of weeks on the pod, they're 2-1-1. They beat the Commanders and the Lions. They lose to the Browns though and tie the Cowboys. So a little skid for them in the last two games of this month. Their offense is stalling with some injuries and shuffling around on the offensive line. But Parsons, even not being full time yet, makes this a really, really good defense. They're ninth in DVOA, 12th on offense, sixth on defense, 10th in point differential. So I really like where these two teams are at. I just kind of flipped them because of the last 2 weeks for each of them. But I think overall, over 4 weeks, they've shown to be really, really strong.
Yep.
Um, Before you talk about those teams specifically, though, I want you to go and talk about the Rams. I had them at 8, which I think is where we had them last time. So I had them as no change. But
Right.
tell me why you vaulted the Rams up ahead of the Chiefs and ahead of the Packers.
So I vaulted the Rams up because I was thinking of the fact that the Eagles needed that big clutch special teams play to beat them. And this
Yep.
is now the second time that the Rams have gone toe to toe with the best team in the NFC. And they almost beat them last year in rough weather in the playoffs, and now they're going toe to toe in the early part of the season. I think at worst, this is a top 15 unit on defense and a much better unit on offense. And
Yes.
watching Stafford just carve up the Colts last week and his chemistry with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, I just feel like they are going to be really, really tough to beat. The first thing I wrote was my pick for the Niners to win the West is not looking good. I mentioned that the NFC West was going to kind of beat each other up a little bit, but I thought it was more of like they're all going to be 9-8, 10-7 type of team. And now I think the Rams have a legitimate opportunity to be pushing for that one seed in the NFC. And so they just look really good to me. They haven't beaten anybody great. So I hear you on that. And they did lose to the Eagles, but I feel like their +3 turnover differential is very sustainable. Like their defense is
Right.
playing well without getting a lot of takeaways.
Yes.
Their offense has had some stalls in the red zone, but outside of that, they're putting up tons of yards. They just look really, really solid. And I mentioned these before the show. They have the best overall PFF score for whatever that's worth. And so, because it supports my narrative right now, I'm going to claim that it's an important stat. I'm the first one
Uh,
to admit that I use PFF a lot of times when maybe it's, only when it, fits the thing I'm trying to say. But there is something to be said for that, right? Like they have looked really good, and for a 3-1 team to have the best overall grade, I think that means something a little bit there. So, our whole thing when we ranked the quarterbacks and when we talked about the Rams was if you can keep Stafford upright, he's a top 5, top 10
yes.
quarterback,
Hmm.
and we're seeing that right now. And so for the first 4 weeks, um, the Rams just look too good to me, and I mentioned my handful of contenders. I have the Rams and the Eagles as the two NFC teams that are legitimate contenders right now. And so in my head, I'm looking at the Rams. Then, if I'm thinking that way, they need to be above the Packers and the Lions.
Hmm.
So they get a
Hmm.
big jump there. And I don't, the Chiefs, they kind of turned it around last week and they ran the ball a lot better, but the Ravens are really depleted right now.
Yeah.
The Chiefs struggled with the Giants. Chargers just
Hmm.
lost to the Giants. The Giants are
Hmm.
probably not as bad as we thought they were going to be,
Hmm.
clearly. But the Chiefs have just been pretty pedestrian. I think they have offensive line issues. I think they're still working through some things. You were right about the Worthy injury and things that kind of hindered them hitting the ground running from the start of the season. But I just felt bold in the moment. I was like, you know what? I think the Rams right now can catapult over there. I'm not going to bet against the Chiefs. I still would consider them a contender for sure. and I only dropped them to 4. But I was like, if I'm going
Right.
to feel this good about the Rams right now, especially after the Packers tied with the Cowboys,
Hmm.
and it looked really weird, like they were too afraid to try to win that game. Instead, they
Yes.
kind of
Hmm.
played for a tie. I was like, what is LaFleur doing? The
Well,
Cowboys.
Love was trying for a win. Love was playing for a win. I
Dude,
think it was a message like, I don't, if the time runs out, the time runs out. I'm not going to be that upset about it.
right.
Hilarious.
And so,
Oh,
I was the same as you. I was prepared to keep the Packers up here because their defense looked completely dominant
yes.
the first two
Hmm.
weeks. And then losing a close one to the Browns, who also have a really good defense, I was like, okay, this is a blip. That's fine.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the way their defense could not stop the Cowboys, who do have a good offense, but the Cowboys don't have a defense. And so like you would think that the the better defense would win out enough there. And so the fact they only got a tie and it was such a high scoring game made me feel like I need to drop them a little bit, especially after the Lions, I think, have proven themselves to be another year as a top 5 offense. So that explains kind of my mix and matching around. But the real explanation for the Rams launch up to 3 is they looked the most like the contender after the Eagles in the NFC, and I was like, that's where my head's at right now. So might be premature given the strength of schedule, but they just I don't know how anyone's gonna stop that offense. And if they have the defense that they have this year, which is better than we thought last year, and now it's still really good, they're not relying on those takeaways like you talked about. Um, I, it's hard to pick against them right now.
Yeah, the on the Packers defense, real quick. I mean, dude, Dak was just freaking awesome. I was having the time of my
Dak was
life,
awesome.
man. Dak was
Yeah.
insane in this game. Um, you look at their first 3 weeks: Lions, Commanders, Browns, and now the Commanders game. Did Daniels go out during that Commanders game? I
Yes.
think so.
No,
Okay,
no. He played most of it. I don't know if he
I'm
finished
pretty sure
it,
he
but
played most of it.
he
But
played
here's the
most
thing,
of it.
because we saw them then still cook in week 3 against the Raiders, right? Like put up big numbers. So that offensive infrastructure is still really good. They gave
Yes.
up 13 points, 18 points, 13 points in the first 3 weeks. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the Lions, the Commanders, the Browns. The Lions turned around and scored a 50 burger the week after.
Yeah.
They only put
Yeah.
13 up against the Packers. Um, they allowed less than 246 or fewer yards in those first 3 weeks: 246, 230, 221. I think that game, I think week 4, Dallas, Green Bay, I think that just speaks more to Green Bay or to Dallas than against Green Bay.
Yeah.
Um, I'm pretty confident that Cincinnati, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Carolina, we'll see what Philly looks like by week 10. These next 4 games, I'm pretty sure, and again, this isn't projecting ahead, but I think these next 4 weeks are going to look more like the first 3 weeks of the season for Green Bay's defense.
Yep.
And this is going to be more about Dallas's offense being fantastic. Um, on your stuff on the Rams, I love the Rams. When I was doing my rankings, and we try to not overreact. We try not to vault teams too high or too low. In most cases, especially too
Right.
high, especially
Right.
getting into that inner circle, right?
Yeah.
We love the Rams. We've been talking about them.
Yeah.
I did prioritize like moving the Chargers up, obviously,
Yep.
but then I went back and I watched that. I watched part of that Eagles game again because yeah, you're right. They're a wild special teams play away from being 4-0 and beating the league's newest, hottest team in the Colts, a team that pushed the Chiefs to get into the AFC Championship game last year in the Texans, and the Super Bowl champs Eagles, right?
Yep.
So that's already really promising. They're a top 10 unit there, so they're 3-1, obviously, third in DVOA, second on offense, 10th on defense, 11th in point differential. They're like one of 3 teams, I think, that are top 10 in both offensive and defensive DVOA. And when I went back and watched that Eagles game, their trenches are cooking. They are
Yeah.
pushing
Yeah.
the Eagles around on both sides. And their offensive line has been dealing with injuries all year. Like Alark Jackson missed a lot of the preseason because of some blood clot stuff. Dotson has had an ankle sprain. Avila has had an ankle sprain, and I think was even out during that Eagles game. Um, and they are pushing the Eagles' defensive line around. Kyron Williams has all these running lanes early in that game. Stafford has been up all season, and like you said, playing at an MVP level. That defensive line. I mean, remember last year when it was Jared Verse versus Lane Johnson on whatever primetime game that was, and like they were having their battles going back and forth. Like Verse was everywhere, and that whole defensive line was getting anywhere they wanted this time around. So I love this. I also want to move them up. I don't know if I can do all the way to 3,
Okay.
um, but and I hear everything you're talking about. Like Green Bay makes me a little nervous, but those first 2 weeks, man, were just so sick. And you said it with the Cleveland. We'll
Yeah.
talk about them later. Their defense is just back. Like last year was a negative blip for them. They're regressing back to being positively regressing back to a really good defense. Um, I'm not quite ready to put the Rams all the way up to three, but I love it. It's spirited. Um, but I got to say, the Detroit Lions, who we both have at five,
Yeah.
I was I was nervous about them. I think I had them at 10 in the preseason rank. You had them at seven. I want to say we ended up putting them at six.
Yep.
Um, they're 3-1. They've beaten the Bears, Ravens, and Browns. They lose to the Packers in that week one game, which that seemed like their blip, right? They're second in
Yep.
DVOA, fourth on offense, fifth on defense, first in point differential. I mean, they are just cooking. Like it
Yep.
looks like, there's no change in terms of Ben
I think
Johnson,
if
and
they
that's what we
played,
were worried about.
I think if they played every game in Detroit, they'd be the best team in the history of the NFL because
Well, yeah, yeah.
there is that element there.
That is certainly always that's a great point. What
By
were
the
these last
fantasy
three games home
podcast I
games?
listened to said they average like 34, 35 points at home, and then
Yes.
you drop the 52 on Chicago, and then Cleveland comes in. You're like, ooh, Cleveland's got a good defense. No, it doesn't matter. The
34 at
Lions are so
home, at
some points.
Baltimore,
Like,
at Baltimore Monday night, but it's still September 38.
yeah,
So I mean that's something. But we mentioned Baltimore. I mean, we'll talk about Baltimore, but Baltimore's
Baltimore's
defense
depleted,
is depleted.
yeah, and
Meanwhile,
their
Green Bay
running
on
game
the
was,
road,
was their
13th.
running game against Baltimore was pretty elite, but I think there's a lot that goes into that in the Baltimore game. Like you said, weather's still nice in Baltimore in September, so
Yeah, so TBD on Detroit, but we both moved them up to one because they look like they are still kind of
yep,
right in that mix. And for me, the defense, like Aiden, like I was kind of worried about where Aiden Hutchinson was going to be, right? Like, was he going to have a slow start? Was he going to need like a full year to really get back to it?
right,
He's playing awesome again. DJ Reed, the corner, just went on IR, but um, their safeties are Branch and Joseph are still making all the plays you would
yep,
expect. Their linebackers look really good this year,
yeah,
so
and
they
I
are
think
still doing everything they need to do defensively and way more than I expected. Even my worst predictions of what like my lowest projections of what the offense were going to be were still like 9 to 12, so still like
yeah,
very good.
yeah.
It was the defense I was more worried about, but shoot, their defense is playing out of control right now.
Yeah, and I think I'll for the first time in this episode I'll mention our favorite phrase, proof of concept. And I think for me it felt easy to move the Lions back up because we've seen this Lions team before. We were worried about new center, we were worried about new offensive coordinator, but it looks like they're able to work with those new faces there. And so getting healthier on defense, having Aiden Hutchinson back, like this team has shown us that this iteration is really good. And so I think it feels right to have them definitely in the top eight. And I like that we both had him at five. What do we do here,
Where
though?
let me here's what's going to decide it for me. I want to see where because the Packers with their defense, I mentioned how overall like it looks great, but that Rams pass rush looks so good against the Eagles and Green Bay overall. Where are we at with their pass rush? So if I go by QB pressure percentage, the Rams are fourth at 44.9%, and the Packers right now are just 17th. Now the defense overall is still very good, but with Micah Parsons still kind of working back up, and he was dinged in that Cowboys game. Remember, he went out for
Yeah,
a little while. He went in the tent. That pass rush isn't quite where it's gonna be just yet. And I mean they're still awesome, but
right.
17th, I can get the Rams up ahead of the Lions and Packers. But I
Okay.
think I think I need the Chiefs to stay at three because
Okay.
this like week and a half where they've had their receivers healthy, you here it is again, proof of concept. Like that's
Yeah.
exactly what I expected going into the year. So to me, that confirmation bias of like the
Yep.
Leo meme, how many of my things can I say in two sentences? Proof of concept, Leo meme, confirmation bias. That's all there, right? I saw it, so now
Yes.
maybe it was a week and a half late, but it was all there, so I feel
Yep.
very confident.
Yep.
But I'm thinking, can we do Chiefs at three, Rams at four,
I will agree to that simply because we know that in our power rankings, up an eight or no, what the Rams were at nine
Rams
after
were
a
at
month
eight,
ago.
Rams were at eight, so
Oh, they
up
were they were
five.
at they were up five. Yeah,
But up
up
into
five is
that
a
up into that upper echelon, like that doesn't really happen. We
yeah.
we
Moving
have
up.
the like bad
Yeah.
to average or average to like pretty good. We don't really have the like good
Right.
into very, very good too
Yes. We
often.
we usually like to make that a hard jump to make. So I can get on board with that. And of course, I'm never betting against the Chiefs either. So the Rams get the Ravens, or sorry, the Rams get the Niners, the Ravens, and the Jags before their bye week. So that'll be a good stretch for us to confirm whether or not they deserve to be in that upper echelon. Right now, they look like they will, but they got to earn it a little bit longer. So,
I think last time we did this, I did a good job of hiding the screen anytime I put the consensus board up, but now you guys are all just seeing me toggle stuff around. So I hope you're all enjoying that. So now the question is, so that's our top four: Eagles, Bills, Chiefs, Rams. I love that.
yep,
Um, Now the question is, so Lions, we're gonna get into that like spiritually. What do we want to happen here?
right,
So the Packers were at five, and the Lions were at six in our
yeah,
preseason ranking. So do we want them both to just be unchanged? Or do the Packers need to go down one with the Lions going up one? Do they need to flip flop? Or are they kind of just what we expected at this time 4 weeks ago?
yeah. I think for me, if they were both 3-1, especially because the Packers beat the Lions in week one, I'd say, well, we should keep the
Hmm.
Packers ahead of the Lions by one spot. But man, that Sunday night game against Dallas really was a bad
Yeah.
taste. I'm with you. I think their defense is still great, and I think they'll bounce back. But that's just like I had my
Yeah.
first thing I wrote was the Packers defense is so good. This Cleveland loss is a
Yep.
blip, and then they go to Dallas and
Yes.
just it just doesn't make sense. So I would put the Lions there because of that, and then
I think you're right. I feel a little better about the Lions now than I did 4 weeks ago, and I guess I do feel just slightly worse. I'm not like panicking about the Packers or anything, but
no,
just seeing
no,
that 17th in QB pressure percentage, it's like, okay, they're not quite where I thought they were. Now it might be even scarier because their defense is still awesome with the pressure rate not being crazy. So when Parsons
right,
does get, but Parsons still being dinged up and like maybe even coming out a little worse for wear than he already was in against the Dallas in the Dallas game does
yep,
make me pause a little bit. So I think that's fine. I think let's reward the Lions for kind of that proof of concept, like being who they are, showing us again that they're just as good without Ben Johnson. Green Bay still a small step to go, but still top six. I think is very good.
yes, for sure.
All right, excellent. Let's get into this now. So we have the same two teams up for 7 and 8 here. How high do we want to vault the Chargers? How far do we want to ding the Ravens? Let me talk about both teams real quick.
Sure.
The Ravens, I have them higher, so I'll just talk about them. They're 1 and 3. They have the win over the Browns, losses to the Bills, Lions, and Chiefs. Three teams that we've already talked about tonight.
The gauntlet.
14th in DVOA, 8th on offense, 26th on defense, 20th in point differential. The Chargers, 3-1 with wins over the Chiefs, Raiders, and Broncos, and the loss to the Giants in week four. They are 10th in DVOA, 13th on offense, 7th on defense, 12th in point differential. What was we do we have this? I mean, we have these teams in the same order.
Yeah,
So there's probably not too much to say. We just have one spot
yeah,
difference, but we both have the Ravens ahead of the Chargers.
yeah.
Anything you want to say here about these two teams?
Um, I don't really need to say too much about the Ravens. I think, unfortunately, this is you never like to make excuses for teams, but this is an injury excuse type of thing for the Ravens. Yeah, they weren't playing perfectly, but they were still. There's a reason we had them in the top four to start the season, and so this is a preemptive drop to at least 7 or 8 for me, and then eventually, if we find out Lamar's out, I mean, this team could be
Hmm.
plummeting pretty far. If you can't, depending on how much they can get Derrick Henry going without the electric nature of Lamar Jackson playing quarterback. And the Chargers, I was ready to put super high up, and then they faltered against the Giants. But I was high on the Chargers in the preseason.
They slipped.
They're 3-0 in their division already after 4 weeks.
That's huge.
How amazing is that start? And Herbert looks great. They're getting Quentin Johnston involved in the passing game. They're overcoming the Rashawn Slater injury. It kind of became an issue against the Giants, right? We knew the
Yes.
Giants had a good front seven.
Yes.
We just didn't know if
Hmm.
they had anything else that was good. So credit to them for putting together a win against a close team. They had a rejuvenation behind Jackson Dart, who didn't actually, play amazingly well, and then they lost Malik Neighbors. So who knows where the Giants go? We'll get to them later. But I don't think that looks as bad of a loss. I thought the Giants held their own as well as they could against the Chiefs a couple of weeks ago as well. That wasn't a complete, blowout either. And so the Chargers losing to the Giants, I'm like, I don't know if I hate that as much, assuming it doesn't send them in the free fall. They had a couple turnovers that cost them, but the Chargers are eighth in total yards offensively, and they have that defense that you mentioned is a top 10 defense. Like this team has everything you want: high power, potentially high powered, but consistent offense and a really good defense. So it makes sense to me that they're going to be, kind of the class of the AFC West. And because they have that head-to-head winning over the Chiefs, like the Chiefs might actually have their work cut out from this year to win that division. And I love that. And I love that the Chargers are 3-0 with their division to start. That you cannot have a better start in this league than that. It hurts a little bit to lose to the Giants right after that, of course, but an NFC loss is not the end of the world come the end of the season. So
4-0 is just hard to do, man. Winning four straight
it's
games
so
in the
hard.
NFL
Yes.
is so difficult. All that said, like you're still sticking with the Ravens, one spot ahead of the Chargers for you.
I have no problem putting the Chargers ahead. This was again another case of how far do we sink the Ravens? We don't know the extent of Lamar's injury.
Hmm.
They had the gauntlet of a schedule that,
Yes.
Lions, Chiefs, uh, well, I'm blanking on who else.
Bills. Bills
Yeah,
week one.
Lions, Chiefs, Bills. That's an insane first few games. So
Literally three of the top five teams we have mentioned tonight.
yeah. So it's not fair after these 4 weeks. And if we want to avoid getting into the prediction and the projecting game,
Right.
we should probably keep them at 7. We
Yeah.
both had them ahead of the Chargers, even though
Right.
in our heads, this team's probably out of the top 10 if Lamar is down for a significant period of time. So
Yeah. My two I think that's right. And what was nice, again, proof of concept, we're talking about the Browns, how good their defense might actually be this year. The
mhm.
Ravens still put up 41 points on them. So like and
Yes.
they're eighth on offensive DVOA, which is huge. Like that offense is still there. The defense, and we've seen this happen with the Ravens. This defense just like ebbs and flows, but the offense is maintaining. I know the 1-3 record versus the 3-1 record is really tough.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
gosh,
It feels
the whole
weird.
we sound old a lot of time when we pod together, but if a true old head watches this and they're like one team is 1-3 and the other's 3-1, what are you idiots doing?
Yeah, exactly.
They will be very confused. But like the Chargers were already rewarding pretty high, right? Putting them at 8 moves them up 5 spots. The Ravens, they're already moving down 3 spots if we do this. We know the offense is there. Again, we're not predicting ahead for what these next few weeks, although the
Correct.
record can't be much worse than it is right now. This is
It's
also
true.
silly. We're such goofballs. But here's two things. My two key things for these two teams that kind of push them. I mean, again, I'm moving the Chargers up, push them down from yes, where I was going to put them.
Yeah.
So the Ravens are 16th in their rush offense DVOA, despite being 8th overall in DVOA. And I was worried about what this team was going to look like going from Patrick McCarry to Andrew Voorhees. Now, I haven't sat down and really paid attention to what Voorhees is doing, and the Ravens still a lot of their advancement, a lot of the numbers in terms of yards before contact for the run game are still good. But I just wonder how much that's playing into it. And fullback Patrick
Right.
Ricard hasn't played yet this season, so they're not there from fully there from like a personnel run blocking standpoint. And we've
Right.
seen all the issues Derrick Henry's having, right? So like I in the back of my mind, I'm like, was last year's elite level run like was that a flash in the pan? Like is
Yeah.
it just enough between Henry a year older, Voorhees, who last year was I think the worst offensive lineman that I watched play last season, significant snaps at least. Um, and then like Ricard being out, like it's just is that magic not going to be there? I don't want to overreact, but that's a thing for me. The
Yeah.
Chargers. What the reason I had him at like 17 in the preseason rankings was Rashawn Slater
Yep.
because I remembered all those times where the Chargers were without Rashawn Slater and the offensive line was horrible and they couldn't do anything and Herbert's getting pressured. Herbert's still getting pressured a bunch, but he's getting it out in time when he needs to. He's extending plays when he needs to. Over, I think week 2 with Robertson, when I did my overreaction episode and I talked about Herbert, I said, wow, I didn't consider that it's great having Slater and Alt, right? But taking away Slater and moving Alt to that left tackle is basically just like when they had Slater before, where it's if you
Right.
have this one stud tackle, they're fine, right?
Right.
They can make everything work. But then when you lose that, that's the issue. And Alt goes down with a sprained ankle in this game against the Giants, and they lose.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
the offensive line has not been good. Alt was playing very well at left tackle. He's supposed to only be out a couple weeks. Like he felt like he could go back in. It sounds like
Right.
they're going to hold him out for a couple weeks, but he's not going to IR, so it should be short term. Again, just thinking ahead a little bit. I do ultimately think we should go Ravens Chargers, but I'm not, if anybody gets in the comments here on YouTube and tells us we're being goofballs or something worse, I'm not
We,
going to end
we-
up arguing with them.
yeah, I think
Um,
that's a fair point.
all right, let's see here. So we're going to do that Ravens Chargers.
Well, Ravens, Chargers.
Um, I will get that adjusted on the graphics for everybody, but we both have the same team at number 9, so why don't you talk to me about the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah, I think that I picked them to win the West at the beginning of the season because I thought their schedule was favorable. And the Seahawks have turned into a good, or are not turned in, but they're a good team. They lose a close one to the Jags. They've missed Brock Purdy a little bit, and yet they're 3-1. They have a -5 turnover differential for whatever that's worth, but their defense is playing well. Um, if you look at their first few games, they beat the Seahawks by 4, the Saints by 5, they beat the Cardinals by 1. Like this is a team that's grinding out victories. Um, and then they lose to the Jags with the 4 turnover game. But I think if Purdy is healthy, I think this offense is a little bit better. And I think that they're still a good team. Their defense is playing probably better than we thought they would be. But again, their schedule I think is favorable relatively speaking, and I think they'll be all right this year, especially with a couple early divisional wins as well. So they just they're 3-1. I feel like they have done what I thought they would do, and so I think that I'll keep them there. Part of the reason I moved the Rams up so high again though is because I was like I picked the Niners to win this division. I thought they were gonna be the class of the division. They're definitely not the class of the division, but they've proven they're right there in the mix. So I think it makes sense to keep them here at 9, which
Yeah,
is
there
actually
was
dropping them a spot, right?
no. This is where we ended up giving the nod to the Rams. In the preseason, we did 8-9 Rams 49ers, I believe.
Yeah, so the Niners don't move then if we have them at 9. Is
Right.
that right? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
That makes
unchanged,
sense.
unchanged for the Niners, and yeah,
Yeah,
because outcome, this is what I expected, and they're taking on injuries every single week. That is a classic 49ers move, and yet they're
yep,
ninth on in offensive DVOA, and they're 12th on defense, so they're playing a little better defensively than I expected. Um, if I had a week by week synopsis of that, though, I'm sure it would not be trending in the right direction as more guys get hurt.
right.
Um, they play that close game to the Seahawks week 1, but then they get to play the Saints and the Cardinals, and then they lose to the Jags. And the Jags, I'll talk about in a little bit, but they were getting the things that they wanted in that game against the 49ers. So, like, we
Yeah,
might see that 49ers defense kind of get to what I was expecting from a talent perspective start
yeah.
to play out. You mentioned Brock Purdy. We should say he has been ruled out for Thursday's game. We get to watch
Yep.
these two teams play together, play
He'll
against each
be
other
yeah.
tonight when this episode comes out. But
Yep.
everybody is hurt for the 49ers, so it's not going to be. They might need some Golden State Warriors players to come and play in this game. Um, insert Draymond Green Michigan State spring game tape here, which maybe I'll do. Um, what I don't love though is once again they're very reliant in the pass game because despite
Yep.
being top 10 in offense, they are 26th in rush offense DVOA and 27th in EPA per rush.
Yep.
Um, that's not what I expected from this season. I thought they were going to get back to what they're good at and just rely on McCaffrey no matter who was banged up at receiver or on the O line or at quarterback. And they are, but they're relying on him in the pass game a lot, and I don't love that. But nothing here makes me want to push them down at all yet.
No, yeah, I'm with you on that. They're like 28th in rushing yards per game. Yeah, to your point, they're not dedicating enough to it. Which I think is a mistake on their part. We've seen how the good teams in the past few years have really returned to having a good consistent run game. Um, so they should get back to that if they want to. They go to LA tomorrow, play the Rams, or tonight to play the Rams, and then they're in Tampa the week after that, who has a tough run defense. So it'll be probably continue to be tough sledding. We might have a 3-3 team that we have at 9 in a couple weeks, but
I have the Bucks at 10, moving them up 2 spots. You have the Bucks at 11.
yep,
We're a little far away on some of the other teams we have here. But I think generally we both feel the same way. Like they're gutting out wins, they're overcoming the injuries on the offensive line, and the defense is actually playing really well. That's a top 10 defense right now, ninth in DVOA. And they're once again like a weird kind of game against the Eagles away from being 4-0. So this group, because of some of the struggles on these other teams in this tier, get into the top 10 for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I would not argue getting the Bucks up that one spot to 10. Because I moved the Jags up four. I don't know if I need that. Yeah, I think they were up four from where we had them last time. But my only little knock on the Bucks is I don't know how sustainable it is to have all these one possession wins. Like I know
Yes.
there's always a team every year that wins every game by what or that the Vikings had that one magical year where they were like 11-1 in one possession games, but that's really not a stat you want to be consistently in. You want to have your games where you dominate and show what you're capable of. You don't want to have to be grinding it out. But then on the other side of that, you could say, well, that's Baker Mayfield. It's what he does. He wins when it's close games. And so, but he also had a key interception against the Eagles recently. So he hasn't been perfect either. But their offense does have fun weapons, and like you said, their defense is has been playing better. So, um, feel good about the Bucks. I think they're in good shape going forward. And I still really like the Jags, but we can drop them a little bit.
Yeah, for those one possession wins, I agree. I was thinking about that too, but with the offensive line so banged up, I'm giving that air of like this is what you need to do when you're pulling guys off the practice squad to be starters and your starting
Right.
center is playing left tackle. If they were doing this with the fully healthy offensive line, I'd be more concerned. But like this is just this is when you should have those one possession wins. This is when it should be we're grinding out these wins because we're at a loss with our talent right now,
Right.
or someone went out during the game, injuries piling up, whatever. When everything's as good as it should be and it's all one possession games, that's where there's like a little bit of a
Yeah.
red flag, I guess. But yeah, I think Bucks being at 10
Right.
is
And
fine.
there's something to be said. There's something to be said. We talked about with the Lions, like we're worried about Ben Johnson not being there. Well, this is a team that doesn't have Liam Cohen there, and so Josh
Yeah.
Grizzard is there. He's an in-house guy,
Hmm.
but still worthy of note that their offense is still clicking and looking good
Yeah.
in a lot of spots. So it's a good sign.
Proof of concept. All right, let's sort out this next kind of group here. So as you guys can see, again, we had the same top eight teams, just slightly different order. There's the official top eight there. It was Lions, Packers, Ravens. Oh gosh, Canva is crashing. I've destroyed it. I've done too much to Canva over the last 2 years. Sorry, everybody.
Can't handle it.
Um, Lions, Packers, Ravens, Chargers rounded out that top eight. And then up next, we had the seven of the next eight were the same. And it was our own stupid teams that I kicked my team out, Josh kicked his team out. That's very us coded. Um, but we have in here Commanders, Seahawks, Broncos, Texans, Jags. We have
Yep.
those same five teams
Yep.
in this group, and we have to sort these out. The Commanders were in this tier already. The Broncos and the Texans were in this tier already. The Jags were in this tier already from a preseason perspective. Um, the one team that we added to this group after kicking out our own teams was the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yep.
want to let me just mention the Seahawks here, and then I'll let you kind of dive in and sort some stuff out. Seattle
Okay.
was 3-1 with wins over the Steelers, the Saints, and the Cardinals. They lose to the 49ers in that week one close game. They're first in DVOA, everybody. Seattle Seahawks, first in DVOA, sixth on offense, first on defense, second in point differential. Um, I talked a little bit about this group last week with Peyton in terms of how much their offensive efficiency is relying on deep passes. But I will say another key stat for that. So they're almost all their offensive efficiency deep passes, but they're 22nd, or I should say, Sam Darnold is 22nd in QB pressure rate. So he's holding the ball and making plays downfield without getting pressured. So that offensive line is holding up in pass, bro. Like he's getting the ball out when he needs to. It's not that he's just holding on and waiting and chucking it deep. It seems like it's all within the flow of the offense. Like it all feels and looks right. And this defense is just sick. They're top three against the run and pass in DVOA. So Seattle vaults for us to the top 12. That's up 5 spots. So they were just on the outside of this tier last time we talked.
Yep.
Um, to quick glimpse the rest of these teams, the Commanders obviously are 2-2, but they've been missing Jaden Daniels. He should be back this week, it sounds like. Houston, I talked about last week.
Man.
My God, Houston, that offensive line. Um,
Seriously.
Denver, like their record is fine, their advanced numbers are fine, but you watch them and it's not spirited at all. I don't mind you having them all the way down there at 16. Um, And then let's see, Jacksonville. Like Jacksonville's fun. They've got some stuff going on, but 13 forced turnovers leads the league on defense. So that's a lot of their defensive numbers right there.
Yep.
Um, and the offense obviously started slow, but I think they're starting to figure some things out. But yeah, sort out this group. Talk Seahawks, talk whoever.
Yeah, if I had to bang a drum for anybody right now at 11, I would probably try not to get the Jags to drop too far back. I think
Mm,
that they should get some credit for they lead the league in turnover differential with those takeaways. They don't they're not super impressive. I know that I've always been the biggest Trevor Lawrence guy in the world, but they're also like top five in rushing offense. They have 144 yards a game right now. Travis Etienne has had some really nice big runs after trading Tank Bigsby, right? So you have this rushing offense that people didn't know who was going to be involved. And it's going pretty well right now. Again, it's not perfect. They're grinding out wins, but to have all those turnover or takeaways to beat the Niners, who we have above them, and there's all this stuff about chemistry with Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence and the wrist injury and Liam Cohen, still kind of getting used to everything. And yet, after all said and done, they're 3-1 after 4 games, right? They get to host the Chiefs next week, so that or this upcoming week, so that'll be a pretty telling matchup, I think. But I think for the first 4 games, I think I feel good about having them up here, especially since we had the Seahawks at 12. Both of us had there. I like the idea of keeping them there. I listened to part of that episode with you and Peyton, like the "We Are Who We Thought They Were" award,
hmm
right? Like
hmm
Seahawks, we thought this defense could be special, and right now it's been special. And so if Darnold continues to be steady Eddie back there, right, they should be able to eke out some wins. I didn't like um, that Arizona kind of came back on him last week. I'm still not going to say that Darnold's going to put up MVP numbers, but at least at the moment, the Seahawks are in really good shape. Um, for the Commanders, I was expecting to drop them because of the Jaden Daniels injury, but their defense is just starting to look like Swiss cheese, like it's looked in years past, where they're
Yep.
just going to get ran and throw on all day. Um, you know, Gave up a lot of points to the Falcons, and Penix is in and out of looking good. He's still a young quarterback learning, so it's not the best offense. I know Bijan Robinson's insane, so it's hard to stop him, but the Commanders' defense isn't as good as I thought they could be. So you couple that with the injury, even though Mariota's been playing halfway decent, so it's not like he's losing them games, so to speak. But they don't really are not a team I want to push up. And the Texans, like you said, this is just where I stopped their slide because it made sense to stop their slide here. You don't get any credit if you're 1-3 and your one wins against the Titans. I'm sorry. Did you see the clip? It's like a meme clip of their offensive line where the ball is hiked. Their right guard and right tackle turn and block each other. And then at the end of the play, they have 6 guys blocking one Titan and
I
CD
just I
Stroud just
I
getting
just watched it.
mauled in the background.
You know who that right guard is, right?
It's my guy, Ed Ingram, right?
It's your boy. Yep.
Yes, who I'm
There will
glad
be
we
no
don't have
Titus
anymore.
Howard slander. That was not on Titus Howard. I love that the end of that
No.
clip is also Titus Howard like tapping Ed Ingram on the head, being like, "Listen, man, you're screwing all this up.
That
They're,
was
they're about to
that's
trade my guy Cam Robinson because they need you in the starting lineup. Apparently, don't get
yeah.
me started. Ed
That was,
Ingram.
I mean, that was our whole issue with Ed Ingram in Minnesota. Like he can move some people in the run game, but he cannot pass pro for the life of him, and so he's just complete liability. So yeah, there's just a stopping of the slide. So I'm
Yeah.
okay with. I'd give you the Broncos ahead of the Texans, but I would kind of bang the drum for the Jags here at 11 next if you could be so convinced.
Let me talk about the Jaguars because I had something big that I wrote here on them. So offensively, they've been getting better in the past game, working along the edges, right? The whole thing at the beginning of the season was Brian Thomas Jr. didn't want to make any plays over the middle. He didn't want to get hit, right?
Yes.
So you go watch that 49ers game. He has his best game of the year, and it's a lot of out route. It's out routes. It's comebacks on the outside. Like he's sticking to the out for whatever reason. If they appealing to him or just they've come to an agreement that like that is actually what works best. I don't know what it is. Or Lawrence's accuracy is better to the outside of the numbers than inside the numbers, whatever. Um it looked good, right? And that was where they were effective in moving the ball. But the run game, you mentioned that the yards per game. They have the second ranked rush offense by DVOA. The line is getting pushed and the backs are going downhill. We talked about it going into the season. I didn't love the Bucks offensive line going into 2024. But Liam Cohen designed a beautiful run game, and whether it was schematic magic or some teaching or development points that he had, he got that group to a top five.
Yep.
So even though the talent on paper didn't look good for the Jags offensive line going into this season, it's looking great right now.
Right.
Depending on where you look, they're top 10 in EPA and success rate on the ground. They're in the top half of the league in yards before contact, top three in stuff rate. So they're not getting stopped at the line of scrimmage. They're getting their 4 yards consistently, if not more. And then the run game is making this offense viable while they sort out whatever it is that's happening with that pass game.
Right.
So this run game has been really fantastic. You watch them. I was watching them again in the Niners game, and they are just blowing dudes off the line of scrimmage. And we'll see how long that sustains, but it looks really, really good right now. And to be honest, like other than Seattle, none of these teams are exciting to me. All of these teams are kind of the like this is like my meh tier. Like after Tampa Bay, we know these are good teams, but no one's really getting me excited.
Right.
The only team I would argue to put above Jacksonville at this point is Seattle. Um, but I like what you're saying about Jacksonville, and yeah, the defense has been playing really well as well.
Um,
And they're
you
they're
did.
doing more things. Like Seattle, again, their offense is coming from just deep passes.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, it's starting with the run game. They're starting to branch out and figure out some other things. So I like
Yeah.
that. So I can give you Jacksonville at 11, and then Seattle there at 12.
Nice. Yeah, and you did mention that like they're relying on a lot of takeaways, and I think that you're right that it is not necessarily sustainable, and we might see their defense drop off a little bit, especially next week against the Chiefs. Who knows? But I feel like for the first 4 weeks they get the credit for that. So
That's true. I wish I just wish, they had somebody that was a corner that was like a top five pick, like just really sticky, could really shut things down in the pass game. I wish Jacksonville had that. Or on the other side, like I really wish they had a really good, number two receiver that could really mix plays.
right, it'd be interesting.
Travis Hunter is playing like 58% of the snaps on offense and 33% of the snaps on defense. What are we doing here? Like I really
Right,
hate this. This is
right.
really this is really
Stupid.
making me upset. Um, Whatever.
See,
Give
you
give
need to
Cleveland
start.
an extra first round pick just so you can have a third receiver and fifth cornerback.
You
Stupid.
need to do your, not a fan, Jacksonville fan podcast. Because listen, you that's the most fired up you've been on this whole podcast talking about the Jags shortfalls.
I came into this year
Jags,
so
Jags,
excited about the Jags,
Jags
man.
fans would love to listen to you rag on all their poor decisions and bad timing.
Could you do a whole podcast on that? You know how, yeah, there's a
Yes,
fan podcast for everything where they like try to spin the positive light. You might be onto something. You
you
might be
could
onto
totally
something.
do it. Yes.
All right, so let's dive back into so there's the top half of this tier for us: 49ers, Bucks, Jags, Seahawks. Texans, Commanders, Broncos are going to fall in this tier somewhere. One of our stupid teams is going to be in here unless we both just kind of give up and put like, I don't know, the Cardinals or someone even more stupid up here. Here's the thing with Denver. Here's the thing with Denver. The defense is still playing really well.
Yeah.
The offense is just hard to watch. I mean, the running backs are bouncing around trying to find any kind of run lane. They're a great pass blocking offensive line, but the run blocking is just not there. They weren't even getting opening up real holes for against the Bengals. And
Right.
Bo Nix, man, it looks like he is working hard just to get these screens and like some ghost these quick routes, like something like there's nothing working for him over the middle. Like he's bouncing around a lot. He's not holding the ball to like even work for things to get open. Doesn't seem like things are getting open. The offense is just hard to watch. And
Yes.
Houston, conversely, offense is terrible. We're not going to go into that any further. But the defense isn't even really holding up its weight. It's 15th in DVOA right now. And, it's partly all the situations, but we're
Yeah.
only 4 weeks into the season. Like, the defense should, if it's going to be elite, should still be playing elite even
Right.
4 weeks into the year.
Right.
So I'm okay with both of these teams really being right down here at the bottom. I think the Commanders just being, we knew the defense was going to be bad, where I knew the defense was going to be bad, but I think just still surviving without Daniels and having,
Yeah.
good offensive numbers for while Daniels was there and even a little bit with Mariota. I think they at least need to be 13. And we just kind of
Right.
write this off as an incomplete. This would move them down. Let's see. I had them at 11. That would have been down one spot. I think a slide of three is enough
Yep.
for Washington. And then talk to me about why you have the Steelers all the way up at 13. Because, like,
So
even though I kept your Vikings in this tier, I still only put them at 16. So you're still the highest on one of these two teams.
yes. So the when I watched the Steelers against my Vikings in Dublin this past weekend, they rectified some of the things that they uncharacteristically struggled with at the beginning of the season. Like their defense wasn't quite as dominant, and they couldn't run the ball. But then Kenneth Gainwell runs all over us for a million yards. I don't know, 130 yards was probably the actual total, but
Let's calm down here. Can't have
Let's
such
calm down.
wonderful
And they
words.
they sacked
That's
Carson Wentz, I think
60 yards and two
six
touchdowns.
times. I think they had 6 sacks against us.
Yes, it
So
was
it
six.
feels like
Mhm.
what's that?
I six is the right number. Hmm.
Six is right. Okay, good. Yeah. And so speaking of my stupid team, Carson Wentz is doing that thing that, you can kind of tell the backups from the starting quarterbacks in the NFL because the split second when they start to feel uncomfortable before they get sacked looks a lot different from Carson Wentz than it does for Patrick Mahomes, than it does for like all these other guys. So, because I don't want to rag on Carson Wentz too much, he played really well. He gave us a chance at the end. Like he gamed for us, right? But the Vikings just haven't gotten enough running game going, and I saw, the Steelers did against us. Now the Steelers haven't done it consistently, but they are 3-1 at the end of the day. And you kind of said it yourself, like this this tier is kind of like the meh tier. I mentioned at the start of the show, I have a handful of teams that I think are contenders. I don't think any of these teams through 14 are going to be like contenders, even though they'll make the playoffs, right? And that's kind of how I view the Steelers, as like, feel like they're going to be a 6 or 7 seed in the AFC. I don't think they're going to win anything, but I saw enough from Rodgers and Metcalf, a union that I didn't think was going to be successful. And again, they do have 12 sacks in 4 games, so it's not just, I know 6 of them were against the Vikings, but I think their pass rush is getting going, and if they can get the running game going, I think they're going to be pretty solid. So I don't have a strong argument, but I was so mad at the Texans because I want so hard for them to be a top 5 team. And I'm so down on the Broncos that I had no problem shooting down that because they still haven't beaten anybody. The Broncos still haven't beaten a single team that is anything. Their wins are against the Bengals and the Saints. Who did they beat in week? No, the Titans. They beat the Titans and the Bengals,
Yeah.
right? So the Broncos have still, since Bo Nix took over last year, not beaten a good team. And so I keep trying to find excuses to drop them. So kind of by default, the Steelers got up there. A little bit of recency
Hmm.
bias probably, because the Vikings made it close, but that game was pretty well in hand up until the last handful of possessions. So yeah, I don't know if that's a convincing enough argument. It's probably not, because I'm sure you know more about your team and you're going to say no, this is why they've been terrible. But
The wins are all just fluky. The wins are all just fluky. And but maybe this is where I need to do the thing where I'm not so much because again, we who were we just saying this about with the Bucks with the one possession wins, right?
yes,
But that feels like they're making plays and the
right.
Steelers, I mean, they're making plays defensively. They're getting the key turnovers when they need. They're getting sacks when they need them. The defense is making some key plays at towards the end of games. But man, it took 5 turnovers to beat the Patriots. Took the
Yeah,
Patriots turning the ball over 5 times.
and you only won by 7. Yeah,
One possession win. It took, I mean, the almost let the Vikings come back in this one. Like I might have been with you with this at like rank up to 13 had they won the game the way they were winning for 3.5 quarters. But to let them back in is kind of just confirmation that like they're just winning games in stupid ways and almost losing games in stupid ways. But I guess if you take the first 3 weeks and then you just say, and then the 3.5 quarters, and then things got wonky in Minnesota, and I didn't get to have eyes on this game. I was in an airport in I was leaving New Mexico, and so at the time I was in Atlanta when the comeback was happening and the game
okay.
happened. And unfortunately, I think I was the reason. So maybe I can give you the ranking because I think I was the reason the Vikings came back because I walked past the gate to Pittsburgh and there's all these Steeler fans in their jerseys and gear and I've got my jersey on. And so I go and I'm fist bumping strangers at their gate.
Love that.
And that was when and yeah, but then that was when that stuff started happening, so that wasn't great. Um I did like as a Jordan Mason fantasy person, I did like that they had him bottled up for a while. It does seem like the defensive front is kind of coming together. The linebackers are
Yeah,
starting to play better. Um, Guys are still banged up though at the defense
yeah,
backfield. But I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. And the thing is, Rodgers can get just enough stuff done offensively.
yeah,
And right now, the like if I we talk about the quarterbacks kind of in this range, like we're talking about Carson Wentz, who you mentioned not feeling great about. Kyler Murray, the Cardinals are just like meh,
yeah.
and we're not going to raise the Colts. I mean, could we raise the? Should we put the Colts in this tier right now? Should we? Should we just say both our stupid teams are stupid, and we put the Colts in here somewhere?
I actually kind of like that because I moved them up 12. I said probably too big of an improvement, but holy hell, that was my that was my great initial analysis. They've only punted 5 times, Simon.
Here's the thing. Here's Man, I did not think we were gonna get to the Colts at this point. I mean, I moved them up 11. I put them at 19. We're just one spot away here.
Yep.
I talked before the season how I was high on the Colts in a lot of capacities. I thought it could be a
Yep.
top 10 defense. I thought it could be a top 10 offensive line. This pass game is extremely efficient though. They're
Mhm.
first in total DVOA, and the offense overall is relying on the run game 50-50 in their run pass split, which is the fourth most skewed split to the run game. So they're running the ball a ton, which I
Mhm.
love. But with that workload of the run game, their reliance on it, they're using that to set up an efficient pass game. First in overall pass offense DVOA. They're like second in offensive success rate. They're like first in pass offense DVOA. Like it's not that they're do asking Daniel Jones to do a lot, right? He's not the
Right.
one carrying it. It's funny because this is what the argument for Anthony Richardson should have been all those years, and yet they're having him drop back a ton. But whatever. Um, they're using the run game and they're being highly efficient with all these different pass catchers they have. The
Yep.
defense is they're fourth in overall DVOA, third on offense, 18th on defense. So they're still like kind of just a mediocre defense, but I think there's room to grow. They forced a bunch of turnovers the first couple weeks. They've beaten the Dolphins, the Broncos, and the Titans. They lose to the Rams in a pretty good game. So it's not like they've beaten the most exciting teams. But
Right.
for the Steelers, where do I have the Steelers? They beat the Jets, the Patriots, and the Vikings. So I mentioned the Patriots, 5 turnovers forced. The Vikings almost lose it at the end. The Jets, really close game, week one. We'll talk about the Jets later. But they're also starting to come around from an advanced metric standpoint. 13th in DVOA, 16th on offense, 17th on defense. Out of principle, I feel weird. I feel icky kind of moving the Colts up this far.
Yeah.
So
I,
I will seed kind of Pittsburgh at 16 and then Denver, Houston, stopping the slides for them at kind of 14, 15. What do you think about that?
yeah, I think that's the right way to do it. I got really excited when you thought about moving the Colts in there, but I think it's unprecedented for this podcast for us to move a team that neither of us had in a tier into a tier. I
Yeah.
think but I love the thought though, because I was going to add on to all your offensive stats for the Colts. They're leading the league in yards per play, quite simply, 6.5 yards per play, with a balanced offense that we didn't expect, and we knew their roster was good overall. Like all our offseason talk was who's going to be the quarterback and are they going to be capable enough to carry this team anywhere? Because their defense, they've been drafting well past couple years on their defense, and they have talent on that roster. So if they and their offensive line has always been pretty good. So like they literally are kind of a quarterback away in a sense. And so, you know, yeah, I don't know. I think they're impressive. So they were our biggest movers, I'm assuming, right? Because moving up, I moved them up 12, you moved them up 11. So
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna be our biggest movers in either
yeah,
direction, I believe. So there's the next rest of the top half: 49ers, Bucks, Jags, Seahawks, Commanders, Broncos, Texans, Dolphins. The Texans, that's a big slide for them. That's
yes,
13. I had them at 14, so that's -7. That's a pretty big slide. It might continue moving forward. Okay, so we've sorted out the top half of teams here. Let's kind of get through the bottom half here a little more quickly, I would say. I
sure.
had the Steelers at 17. You had the Vikings. We talked about the Vikings. I think we can keep them there at 17.
Yep.
Unless you want to, I mean, we just talked about the Colts, but I think we should keep the Vikings at 17. I
So
think, I think,
I had the Vikings at 16 in one of my first iterations for this week because I said they're 2-2. They've done some nice things. Wentz hasn't been completely terrible. I just don't know what direction my team goes from here. I don't know if we're gonna get better and move and kind of flirt with the playoffs, or if we're gonna go, bury ourselves. Because our defense is obviously good enough to compete. But offensively, we haven't run the ball enough. We haven't been consistent enough. And if we, Carson Wentz or JJ McCarthy, you either have a guy who's proven he's a backup or a guy who is unproven for anything. It's just too many wild cards on the offense. So, regardless of our defense, we're right in the middle because we'll be competitive, but I don't know which way we're going to skew. So,
Here, I actually did have a question for you on Minnesota. Do you feel like the defense is as good as it was last year? Right now, it's eighth in DVOA, but last year it was like first or second with a bullet all season long. Do you feel like this defense is as good as it was last year?
No, it's not as good. I mean, we were without Andrew Van Ginkel last
Right.
week, which is a big one. And the refs obviously, were worried about Ben Skoranek getting hurt, and so they didn't let us play as physical as we could have played. Just kidding.
How how do you feel about
That
the back
flop
end?
was insane though.
Cam, Cam Bynum obviously was a lot of the
Yeah,
forcing the turnovers guy, getting the interceptions last year. He does that those
yeah,
first couple weeks for the Colts. How do you feel like it's working out on the back end? Like Mattel's playing, is he like he's playing a little bit more of a standard safety role than that hybrid stuff, right? Or
yeah.
and there's another third safety that's playing more.
Yeah, because I know that Harrison Smith missed the first game, and then he came back, and it was a nice boost. I think our back end's a little bit soft right now. It's really hard to tell, honestly, because we looked like world beaters against the Bengals, but so does everybody. So Isaiah
Right.
Rodgers had like a historic game,
Yes.
and he's been
Mm.
playing generally pretty well, but mainly in the splash plays. I don't know if he's being as elite from an actual covering standpoint. Um, so yeah, we're definitely not as good as last year right now. No, I would say that is pretty.
So this is coming from the person that had the Vikings higher than you.
Yep.
With everything we just said about the Colts, I kind of wonder if we should flip-flop the Colts and the Vikings because remember preseason I talked about I did that DVOA study where like you can't really just have a good defense and hang your hat on that. Like if you're gonna hang your hat
Yeah.
on the defense, it has to be elite. Meanwhile, the offense right now is 29th in DVOA, and whether it's Wentz or JJ, who I'm not out on JJ at all, but like obviously had the ups and downs. So if it's not gonna be as smooth on offense, um,
Yeah.
the offensive line, by the way, like this isn't projecting ahead because they've been banged up all year, and we're seeing what that
Yes.
looks like.
Yep.
Darisaw in and out. Ryan Kelly with two concussions already this season, so now you're like, is he
Brian
gonna
O'Neill went
play the
down
rest of the
with
season?
Brian
O'Neal
O'Neill
went
went down
down
with
during this game.
something. So
Do we flip the Colts and the Vikings here? Put the Vikings at 18 just because that defense isn't quite as good and the offense is such a big question mark right now?
yeah, I mean, I can sadly I can get on board with that. I mean, I had the Vikings ahead, but I mean, that's a pretty compelling argument. And like I said, I don't really know where the Vikings go. So based on where we had them, that's why I kept them near the 16 range because I don't know what it
Yeah.
looks like yet. But I think Jordan Addison being back will help the offense. Like it helped. He had some moments against the Steelers as well because he's back from suspension. So,
Hmm.
but we're kind of falling into the same trap where O'Connell is really good at getting the passing game going, but sometimes he abandons the run, and abandons the wrong term because we have Jordan, we are obviously using Jordan Mason, but we're still lower in the attempts per game, and I think that speaks to being on the field enough and just not getting enough on first and second down with that, so that we have to throw too much. So I think the big issue against the Steelers, we were third and long like the whole first
Right.
three quarters. And if that's going to be the trap we fall into, those are my least fun seasons to watch is when my team
Yes.
goes three and out because they cannot get anywhere near the first down marker until the third down screen pass that gets them within 5 yards. So that was a little bit doom and gloom. I still am optimistic for the Vikings. I didn't mean to sound that doom and gloom, but it doesn't feel like we're fully clicking yet. So I'm with you on that. And the Colts they can get their flowers for this. This might be the highest they get, or we could be ahead of the curve when we're arguing for them in the top 12 next podcast. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the way we were talking about some of those other teams in that tier, it's not, it wouldn't be too hard for the Colts to proof of concept.
Yeah.
God, can you imagine if they were doing what they were doing right now, the Colts, and it was Anthony Richardson at quarterback though? Like that, I'd have him at 8. I
Yes.
would
Oh,
have him so
for sure.
high.
I would.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, I just,
Yes. I would be banging the drum
I
on
need,
top 10 for
I
them
need
too.
3, 4 more weeks with Daniel Jones to really think it's gonna sustain.
Right.
All right, the Cardinals. The Cardinals are just the most blah team. This is
That's
I think a week or two ago I called Kyler the like Mendoza line of franchise quarterbacks, right? Where it's like you take him first overall and like you can keep him around, but he's like the worst you would take to be like
right.
a call him in name and in financial capital a franchise quarterback. And I feel like the team's the same way. Like this is just the like ultimate line of if you're a good team or not. I kind of hate where they're at. They're 19th in DVOA, 24th on offense, 16th on defense. Um, their run game, especially, is another one that's really disappointing. In the 2 years of the Jonathan Gannon head coach, Drew Petzing OC, and Clayton Adams offensive line coach group, they were ninth in run offense DVOA in 2023 and 2024. Adams goes to be the OC for the Dallas Cowboys, and they are currently 30th in rush offense DVOA. Now, also James Conner is out. Trey Benson also just went out this week, so like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel from the running back
Yep.
talent. But man, that was a little nerve wracking. They're not having that O line coach back, so this is just a blah team. That this is them. I think what staying where we had them at 19. I just they're going to be our ultimate line. I think we had this 2 years ago. We had a team that was like, this is the official team of if you're better
Yeah.
than, you're good, and if you're worse than, maybe it was the Cardinals 2 years ago for all I know.
Could have been.
Um,
I think this is going to be evidence that maybe we have been doing this podcast too long, or we've been doing it so long that we've refined the process. Literally, one of my lines about the Cardinals was they're so very bleh that I don't know where to put them. That's literally one of the things I wrote. And so that's why they ended up here. They're too competitive to drop into the bottom third. And they like because they do what they did against Seattle. They, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. head down all game, body language sucks. Kyler's body language sucks. Their offense is never in rhythm. And then they put their talent on display and Harrison has that big touchdown catch and they almost come back and steal one against Seattle. And it's like, okay, so are they good? Like they do this to us all the time where we look at the talent, we want to move them up. The defense is good, like generally speaking, but they're 2-2. Their only two wins are the Saints and the Panthers. So they definitely don't get to move up because of that. Like you don't get any credit for that because you didn't win in necessarily the best ways. And then you lose your other two games and you just don't know with this team. And we've talked about it all the time. Like you mentioned with Kyler Murray, the Mendoza line, like, who knows what he's thinking. And their offense just never seems to be firing on all cylinders because
nope.
if it was, I think they'd be really hard to stop because I still think Harrison Jr. is an elite talent. And Trey McBride, I don't know how any defense can actually contain him if when used well. The or the injury to James Conner is tough, but I think Trey Benson's fine enough as a running back. They just don't have it. They don't have the it factor. Is the only thing I can think of, and so I think 19 is perfect because they're always going to be knocking on the door of the playoffs, but not good enough to get there.
We moved the Patriots and the Bears both up 3 spots at 20 and 21.
Yep.
The Patriots stay ahead of the Bears, one step ahead, 2-2, and their offense is humming 13th in DVOA, and they are first in offensive success rate this season. Like the defense isn't where it needs to be at, clearly, and Christian Gonzalez, I can't remember if he played last week or not, but he has not played for a chunk of the season. And we know this Vrabel defensive stuff like kind of takes time to come around, and it's not ever like it's a top five defense. But like Josh McDaniels and Drake May are proving exactly what they needed to prove, and they're doing it right away. So the offense is humming, and then the Bears, it's taken a little bit of time, but their offensive efficiency is improving every single week, which is great. I've talked about that the last couple of weeks. And defensively, if you really look at it, um, they, despite some, hang on, let me just read this verbatim. If you look at the individual games defensively, Minnesota in week one scored 6 points in the first 3 quarters, and then they go off in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
They held the Cowboys offense to 14 total points. We'll talk about the Cowboys offense in a minute. I think their poor defensive numbers are advanced on the advanced analytics side are heavily skewed by, giving up 50 points to Detroit, who like
Yep.
needed to prove to everybody that they're still the Lions. If you take those away, I think the numbers bear out for this. No pun intended. Wow, I can't believe I did that. I think the numbers bear out as they're actually a much better defensive unit than they look.
Yep.
Um, so I think again that we expected Dennis Allen with this level of talent and investment on defense to be pretty good. We expected this offense to get somewhere, and they're doing that. So both teams move up for me.
Yeah, for
Andy,
sure. I agree with everything you said. I mean, even the Bears against the Raiders, they gave up a lot of rushing yards and they barely won, but they had a good game of turnovers and they were just 25% in the red zone. So their offense is still working out some kinks. In game one against the Vikings, part of the reason they didn't build a big enough lead is Caleb Williams was missing some open guys down the field, and he's gotten better at that, right? He's really found a target in Roma Dunze and is pushing the ball a little bit better. Because he had his legs in that game, and he's been showing that all season so far that he can get some first downs with his running. And so I think that offense is rounding into form a little bit, and they're going to be kind of scary to deal with. Their defense, like you said, is better and skewed by that Lions game. And then the only thing I'll add for the Patriots is that this is exactly what we kind of predicted, right? This is the second best team in the AFC East. They're 2-2, and if they didn't get infected with fumbleitis the other game, they could be 3-1 right now. But
exactly.
Ramondre fumbled, and then Antonio Gibson fumbled a bunch, and like they
Drake
just
May
making those.
fumbled through a pick.
Yep, they're just making some of those mistakes, but when Drake May's not turning the ball over, he looks like a potentially elite starting
He's,
quarterback. So,
he's freaking so good, man.
he,
He's
he
so great.
I think we said this maybe last year, so or the quarterback one, but when he scrambles, it doesn't look like he's going that fast, and yet he always seems to get the edge when he needs to and get the amount of yards he needs to. Like it's kind of that effortless running that those elite athletes have, and so if Drake May can protect the ball and their defense, gets a little bit better, yeah, this team could be scary. So they're about where I think they're going to be the second best team in that division behind the Bills, and they have a shot at the playoffs. So hopefully, not hopefully, I don't really like the Patriots, but you know, for the sake of we like Drake May and stuff, like I hope that they
Yes.
keep getting better and that they move up this list next month. So
I have to consistently park out or block out that part of my brain that connects May is on the Patriots and just enjoy
yes,
May having success. Because yeah, it's real tough for me.
yeah,
Uh, 22, the last team I'm gonna fight for to not be in the bottom 10,
okay,
the Dallas Cowboys. They're
interesting.
1-1, and their defense is horrible.
Yeah,
They've lost to the Bears and the Eagles, so teams that we, obviously very different levels. One is at 1 is at 21, but like we
yep,
we feel positive about both teams.
yep,
And then the that tie with the Packers, they're 22nd in DVOA, 32nd on defense, 23rd in point differential. The numbers are awful, right? Awful.
yes,
They're fifth in offensive DVOA, and Dak Prescott is playing out of his freaking mind.
yeah,
Um, Part of me, and this 22 would be down 2 spots from our preseason rank, and that's even like we knew the defense was going to be awful.
yeah.
But it's funny, part of me feels like they should go up because we sort of expected this. I'm
Yeah.
proud almost. The Cowboys are an elite offense. The run and pass games are both doing well despite CeeDee Lamb being out and different injuries on the offensive line.
Yeah.
George Pickens and Javonte Williams have been very good additions so far this season.
Mhm.
And the defense, yeah, as expected, but like whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and there's hope. There's hope for this team. So in terms of our power rankings, Josh, we've done this long enough as we've mentioned. I'm digging up a little historical data on our power rankings. Ready?
Uh-oh.
The Bengals have gone through this exact same up and down last year. This trajectory of being an elite offense with a terrible defense.
Yep, yep.
Across our rankings last year, they were 18th in the preseason, 22nd in after at this episode last year. Then they went to 21, 16, and 15 because their
Okay.
offense was just keeping them in games or winning enough
Yep.
games. They're about 500 with an elite offense. We have the chance for the Cowboys here. Let's set
Yep.
a precedent.
Okay. Okay.
22 with you get to 22 with an elite offense and terrible defense through 4 weeks. You move down a couple spots from the preseason,
Yep.
and then you could steadily, as all these other teams kind of just like net out to be blah and awful. We can be like, hey, we at least like watching your offense and you're winning enough games.
Yep.
Um, let's set this precedent. Dallas at 22.
All right. I'm gonna give that to you. That was a compelling argument. And I was on
Love
the
it.
Dallas great offense thing. I think some part of me didn't think their defense was gonna be as bad as it is. And I think that's why I buried them a little bit because um I knew we all said they were gonna be
Expectations.
bad. It was obvious they were gonna be bad. But then when I started watching them give up all these points, I was like, wow, they really are that bad. It's like insanely bad.
It can
It's
get
so
worse.
bad. But
If only they
I think
had a really good edge rusher, that would really help.
yeah, yeah, if only they had like a Micah Parsons type or something. Simple fix. But
Remember?
we'll give them their 22 spot because of Dak, because he has been making some obscenely good
S-
plays. And then
Such
they
a
have the
stud.
other thing that I mentioned in the preseason one. They have Brandon Aubrey. So, you know, you don't really need that many yards to get points when you're Dallas. So shootouts are a possibility for them. And that's all they're gonna be in this year, but you know, so
And the
let's
O
do it.
line coach I mentioned leaving the Cardinals, he's
Yep.
now the OC for Dallas. So that's
There
why
we
that
go.
run game is still working too. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
you do what you want with the bottom 10. I'm gonna go take a nap. We, I like these three teams that you have here. Let me pull this back up for everybody. So Giants, Jets, Raiders. I only have the Raiders kind of rounding out this tier with you, but Giants, Jets, I actually had further down much more. But I don't mind what you have here going on. So talk to me about the New York teams.
So I'll start with the Giants because actually the Jets are my favorite, which makes no sense because they're 0-4. But um the Giants when they held their own, quote unquote held their own with the Chiefs, I was kind of impressed with that score line a little bit. I thought they did a decent enough job because I knew they weren't going to win that game and I thought it could have gotten ugly and it didn't. And that was still the Russell Wilson led Giants. So when I see the Giants beat kind of one of my darling teams, the Chargers, with the new rookie quarterback, I wanted to move them up further. But then if you dig into some of the numbers, like Jackson Dart was fun, but he wasn't particularly great,
Right.
right? And so I think what we found is what we knew going in, that their front seven of the Giants is going to be good. The back end maybe playing a little bit better, and they get a little bit of a burst because new face at quarterback, so it was kind of fun. And like part of the reason I think maybe the Chargers lost that, everyone knew Jackson Dart could run, but I don't know if they expected him to run that well and that often. And so I think that's hard
Right.
to plan for the first time you play a quarterback. And now that's going to be on tape, officially in the NFL. And so I think he's going to have a tougher go about it in the next few games, and really going to have to learn how to be a quarterback. I don't expect him to really take off. So I think I moved them up a little prematurely. Um, but I just like I like what I see from Drew Phillips in the secondary. I
Hmm.
think we both
Hmm.
kind of liked him coming out of college. And Brian Burns is leading the league in sacks. That's why you make that trade for him from Carolina a few years ago. Like, um, the pieces they have there are starting to do some things. And so if Dart is something, it can be kind of a fun competitive team this year. And so I got a little bit on the hype recency bias, but I don't need them up here. In fact, I don't mind leaving the Raiders there. And then the Jets, I told you pre-show before week 4, I wrote, is this the best 0-3 team? And then after they lost the Dolphins, I wrote,
Uh,
they're 0-4, but I don't hate watching them. And however you want to feel about the Jets, it's fun to watch Justin Fields ball again. And it's fun because you can tell that him and Aaron Glenn have a good relationship, and it's so
mhm.
much better for both of them, or especially for him, than it was in Chicago. And so, and probably Pittsburgh too. I didn't notice as much. He didn't get as much playing time as we know. Um, so I
Sore
like,
subject.
yes, yes. So I just like that there's seemingly some positive vibes. And if you think of that Miami game, Miami's terrible. We know that they're buried down on this list, but the Jets really should have won that game. They ran for 200 yards. They turned the ball over when they could have taken an early lead because Braylon Allen fumbles at the goal line. And so you could argue that, yeah, turnovers, they had 13 penalties against the Dolphins. They should be down further, but I'm kind of on the more positive side of things. Like I feel like, and if Fields doesn't have that concussion game where he has to sit out, like I think there's a chance they have a win. They almost beat the Bucks, who we really like. Like
Right.
this team hasn't been as bad as a lot of 0-4 teams have been. So, if you're like, if you like those old timers, if they're listening, are like, you guys are overanalyzing it. They're 0-4. They're terrible, right? But in my head, I'm like, they've had a lot of moral victories. I kind of like watching the Jets, and I'm kind of low key rooting for them a little bit. So that's why I threw them up in this tier, because they don't strike me as a bottom of the barrel team right now, even though they probably are. So
Three of those four losses were one possession games.
yeah,
The one that wasn't was against the Bills, who we have number two on this list, and that was the game. I mean, Fields was having a horrible game before that, but then he gets concussed.
yes,
Um, the Bucks one came down to crazy special teams plays at the end. You mentioned the Dolphins, all the shoot yourself in the foot mistakes. Um, Steelers was a close game all the way to the end. And here's what was interesting, because I was ready to bury them at 0-4, and what really killed me was their 25th in defensive DVOA. The whole point of Aaron Glenn and the whole point of the whole coaching cycle, I was like, get a defensive coach in, was this defense is still too talented to be bottom of the barrel again. They need to get back to top 10. So I look at that and I'm like, okay, they failed. They did not fix the defense. That doesn't mean Aaron Glenn's a failure, but just like the whole premise of the thing is bad.
yep,
But when I dug in a little bit deeper, they're sixth in rush defense DVOA. So they are stopping the run. Now they're 30th in pass defense DVOA. And you go look at that, and they are despite being top half of the league in blitz rate, they're bottom third to quarter in the league in pressure and sack rate. So they
yikes.
are just like the zeros of getting to the quarterback right now, which is atrocious. You can't do that. They're not even that bad in like average separation or like time to throw. Like they're not even that bad in those. It's just literally they're just not getting hands on the quarterback. Which if you do that, the numbers aren't going to bear out, and you're gonna.
Right.
They gave up the second, I think second highest percentage of clean pockets in the NFL, and the fourth most yards after catch. So there's a lot of weird issues, but they fixed the run game, right? The run defense is good again. So I think I can hang on my hat on. I know this offense has its identity. I know this defense has its run stopping ability back. I look at the Giants and yeah, I'm excited for Dart and like to see where it goes. Yeah, I'd rather keep the Jets up here. I think the
Nice.
Raiders. I think we both just think like the Raiders are dropping. I think 4 spots to get down here to 23.
Yep.
Um, there's a little bit of that proof of concept where their two best offensive games, Jackson Powers Johnson, were the games that he played and were healthy, and now he's back. So like Ashton Genty had his turnaround game in week 4. We should see them kind of get a little bit better, I think.
It's
Um,
it's funny because I listened to that show you did with Peyton, the award show, and that was
mhm,
before the Ashton Genty kind of went off. And so yeah, I think that that kind of tracks, right? Like
yeah,
they're getting back to that, and we see that it's probably going to get better, but for now they have to get punished a little bit for their first 4 weeks. So I think that
yep.
makes sense.
So the Raiders there, I think the Jets 24. I think I'm happy with your rank there. The one team I want to talk about next is the Falcons. I don't know what to do with this team. They're 2-2. They have wins over the Vikings and Commanders, but losses to the Bucks and Panthers. Obviously, that shutout against the Panthers. Um, the defense is good. They're fourth in defensive DVOA. Now that's buoyed by first in blitz rate and 10th in pressure or top 10 in pressure and sack rate. So like the volume is there. They're blitzing on like half their plays, which is crazy. They're not. It's not equating to like first, second, or third in sacks and pressures, but it's enough, right? They're throwing enough
Right.
at the problem to make it stick and make them effective. And the offense is going through its growing pains. It's having its good games and bad games. That's going to happen. Um, you had the Falcons at 26 ultimately, which is
Yeah, which is
one
pretty close.
down, and I moved them one up, I think. So,
Yep.
what are your thoughts on the Falcons?
The Falcons are, and maybe I was the only person that did this, but I kept saying in the offseason that we haven't really seen Penix play enough to really think he's going to be great. And then now when I've seen him this year, I haven't been that impressed. Like he will make some
Yep.
plays that show where the talent is and why he's a first round pick, but he's also not there yet. And I don't know if other people were thinking he was going to be better this year, because if you weren't, then this is about what you expect, a guy who's basically a rookie, going through some lumps. Like he had this terrible interception last game where he tried to drop the pass in and there was no loft to it. There was no touch to it. And like
Yes.
that's just something that comes with the territory. You're not ready for the NFL yet. And so because of that, I feel like their offense is going to leave a lot to be desired. And then I just punish them because you can't get blanked by the Panthers.
Yeah, that's bad.
The Panthers had a chance. Their offseason felt positive. They had a chance to kind of show that maybe they can be competitive. And you can't get blanked by the Panthers. Like I know your division is already the worst in the NFL probably, but you cannot get shut out by the Panthers. So that's just real bad. That's a real bad look. And so I was a little bit miffed by that. And I just think just Penix just needs a lot more experience. And so I think that is going to negate what they can really, or put a cap on what they can do offensively, even though they have, in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL and Bijan Robinson. So there's a little bit there. You're right about the defense though, and it really came true against the Vikings. They played really well against us, and then that offense, we were only remotely in that game because they couldn't score touchdowns. They had like
Hmm.
field goals straight. Like there are some issues there that it's not gonna matter how good their defense plays. So I felt like those kind of minor, they weren't major factors, but I felt like that was enough to drop them a little bit. But yeah, I think their defense is a little bit impressive considering where we thought they would be. But Penix, in
I
my head, everyone was thinking he was going to be better than he is.
yeah.
Even though maybe that's not how people believed. But
I thought the Vikings game crystallized it for me with Penix, and it's just all the like bones of a good quarterback are in there, and we're just right now he has accuracy issues and it's not
yeah,
consistent. So like, oh, that's gonna come, and yeah, the touch
yeah,
should get better. Um, so yeah, it is what it is there. The defense I'm so surprised by. Like I remember after week 2, because Peyton actually was going to talk about the Falcons for one of his awards, and then they get blanked by the Panthers, and he was like, "I'm not going to talk about them anymore." Um, I watched all their defensive plays for the first 2 weeks, and like you could just tell like they're just blitzing, like they're blitzing,
yeah,
they're bringing the linebackers, Divine Diablo and Caden Ellis are like good blitzing linebackers, so that's working. They're getting good, and they are getting good true interior pressure. And then like Walker and Pierce and Ebiketie are just like fast enough that if a tackle is trying to help on the inside or they're going one on one against the tight end, like they're just enough to get around. but it's not anything that's like super exciting or
No.
super innovative or and then on the up when it's not super when it's not Brian Flores doing all his sim pressures, you want it to just be rushing four, right? And you're like, these guys are just four talented guys getting after it. And it's not that either. So it's kind of like I give you credit because you're getting the end result you need, but it's also like not terribly impressive for me to like super highly count it.
Right.
Um, and yeah, the offense is just gonna have it up. But I mean, like, good on them to get the result they need.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Similarly, getting the result they need, like moving Zach Robinson down. Um, clearly, like that's something that they felt like Penix just needed, and like it seems to have worked for 1 week. But the fact that they did that after 3 weeks, along with firing wide receivers coach Ike Hilliard, just like continues to confirm that this team just like makes rash decisions all the
Yes.
time, and it's super frustrating. But that's
Yes.
not what the exercise is here today. So so let me pull this up again. Here's how we ended the last tier. Cowboys, Raiders, Jets finished out 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. I'll give you Falcons, Giants. What order do you want to put them in?
I'm gonna go Giants Falcons.
Okay.
Even if
All
I'm
right.
wrong, I'm gonna stake my claim that the Giants are better than the Falcons this year.
Um
It's a bold claim.
yeah, we're really doing it big over here. Um all right, so Giants 25, Falcons 26.
Yep.
I'm going to push for the Browns to be 27.
Sure.
We said this along the way while we were talking about all the good teams that they've played well. This defense is just back, and when you got
Yep.
a unit to hang your hat on, I mean they're second, I think, in defensive DVOA, um, and they took a big jump down in their offensive ranking this past week, 27th um, in overall DVOA, but 31st on offense because they was really bad before. I just think that that defense just keeps them above anyone else on this list.
Yep. Yep. You're not gonna get any argument from me there. That's exactly what I said. You know, the win against the Packers was super impressive, even though it was a 13-10 win. That was at Lambeau. That's a big one. And they lost to the Bengals, but they had to play Joe Burrow led Bengals. Most recent teams have not had to face that, right? So that's actually a tough matchup on their schedule. Um, so I still think it's more about, you know, hopefully getting some of the young quarterbacks some reps this year. Because this team isn't going anywhere.
Yep.
But yeah, their
Dylan
defense.
Gabriel is
Yeah,
starting next week. Is
there we
starting
go.
in week 5. Um,
And by the way, they ran a third and goal. It was third and goal from the one against the Lions, and they tried to sneak it with Joe Flacco. What are we doing here? Joe Flacco can't get 1 yard that way anymore. Are you kidding me? It was the world's worst QB sneak attempt.
he couldn't do it when he was 26. He's definitely not doing it now. Um, yikes. Yeah, the moving on from the quarterback thing is funny. I wanted I said this before the season. I wanted 7. This was still when they had Kenny Pickett too, so it changes a little bit of the math. Not that Kenny Pickett was going to change the world, but I said give 7 weeks to the vets.
Yep.
That way the team just like keeps trying. The defense like hangs in there. Like you're doing your due diligence, and then 10 weeks to the rookies. 5 weeks for Gabriel. 5 weeks for Shadur. They're close to that math, right?
Yeah.
Four weeks. This is ideally
Absolutely.
like you would have given 4 weeks to Flacco. I would have liked to have 3 weeks of throwing Kenny Pickett to the Wolves, but whatever. Not because I'm a Steeler fan, just because I don't want to ruin these rookies yet. Meanwhile, Dylan Gabriel's going to make his first start internationally for like with the worst offense in the NFL, so
Yep.
that's fine.
Against the Vikes.
Um, this Shadur stuff. I don't want to spend too long on this, but it's so hilarious. It's so frustrating. He gets interviewed today in the locker room. I guess not an interview. He has the scrum around him about he's
Right.
still the number 3 quarterback, even with the benching of Flacco, and he like pantomimes his response, like he doesn't actually say anything. And this is because somebody, quote unquote, somebody leaks to Adam Schefter why he did this. So Adam Schefter actually gives this detailed tweet about like why he was pantomiming,
Yeah.
and this, so it's to Rex Ryan who's saying like Shadur shouldn't be up there saying he couldn't be a starting quarterback in the NFL, which is the stupidest thing. Like
Yes.
because his arms were crossed. I don't know what's up with Rex Ryan. Shit up
No,
Rex Ryan.
he's a
But
weirdo. He's a
we
weirdo.
we we hate that he said that he thinks he's good enough to be a starting quarterback. Meanwhile, Jameis Winston, we love, and he
Right.
said the same thing. Like he was
Yes.
like, yeah, Dart is going to be the starter, and I'm still third string, and it's my job to blah blah blah. But I know I'm a one of the top 32. So like because one guy said it a little bit different, like whatever. And Rex
Stupid.
Ryan's like, I know he's not sitting in the front of film sessions or whatever it is, and there's stuff we don't know.
Right.
But this all goes back to when that report leaked on about Shadur, the Ravens were going to draft Shadur, and he didn't want to be drafted there because he wanted to be a starter. So then everybody clowns him for, oh, you go to Cleveland and you're not a starter. Haha. That's so clearly he wanted to compete to be a starter. He wanted to go to training camp and have a chance to win the job.
Yeah.
He knows he's not getting that in Baltimore.
Right.
Everyone wants to make fun of him for it. And now Lamar's out for a couple weeks. And everyone's like, oh, you could have been a starter. It's so clearly not about 2 weeks. It's about like wanting a route to be.
Right. 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 Right.
And again, there's stuff I didn't like about Sanders. I'm not even a Sanders guy. I didn't want the
Right.
Steelers to take him. All this rigmarole in this circus, whoever you want to blame for it, is
Right.
why he goes in the fifth round because you don't want all of this attention to a guy that's a second or
Right.
third stringer. I get that. I get that. This isn't about where he was drafted. But like now we're just intentionally trying to find ways to bash this guy
Yes.
who, like, by all accounts, like once he actually got picked, is just like, okay, this is my situation. Here we go. And it too much is being made of it. So
Yeah. For
now,
sure.
again, is pantomiming his response in the locker room like the best way to do it? No. But to his point, like, what was he gonna say that wouldn't have
Right.
gotten a negative response? Like, either
Right.
way, he's gonna headline ESPN. He could have just said like, "I support Dylan. I support the Browns. I'm gonna do my best." Then everyone's gonna say, "Oh, he's given up. He doesn't care anymore." So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a lose lose situation for the
It's
guy.
it for sure is, and especially in our sports culture, we've for years lauded a lot of players for being the confident guy, right?
Hmm.
Like the overconfident, like, oh, I'm the best, I can do this, I have to try to be the best. Like we've given credit to so many guys over the years for that I don't know why it would be any different. But Rex Ryan is just a weird dude that wants to he likes to get his time to shine on on the NFL Countdown or whatever show he's on. So
It's not even that. It's like Get Up. They have like
or they get up,
basketball
yeah.
players on there. And I mean, I know we're just two guys talking football, so like anybody could talk football. That's fine. But
Right.
like, like whatever, man. Like you're
Yeah.
on here with
Yeah.
Markeith Morris or
Yeah,
whoever's on Get Up these days.
yeah, it makes me want Shadur to get in there and kill it. So it'll be fun.
All right, let's sort out the next few teams here. Let's see, where are we at? Canva. Let's get back in here. I'm preemptively putting in
Yeah,
some
I'm
of
just
these
gonna say you're giving me
final
the you're
columns.
not gonna fight for the Panthers?
I'm not, the Panthers suck. Giants, Falcons, Browns, 25, 26, 27.
Yes.
Um, let's see, who else do we have? So the Titans have to be 32. They're on 4. There's no hope. The Saints were at least somewhat competitive in the first couple games, but the
Yes,
Titans
but
are going have been blown out in every game. And the vibes are all bad. Like everyone's just waiting for Callahan to be fired. At least the Saints, it's like, ooh, Rattlers, doing a little bit of something. The offense doing a little bit of something. Kellen Moore, we're still kind of excited about. So
I
spiritually, Titans have to be 32.
really wow, okay. Are you gonna play a card for that?
No, it doesn't matter. Whatever.
I gave them the 31 spot because at least they have a rookie quarterback, so I'm okay with it. The Saints are just
The
bad.
Saints have a rookie quarterback. He just didn't win the starting job, even though he was
Yeah,
their second round
exactly.
pick.
Exactly.
That's fine, right? That's fine.
It's fine. Who are we missing? Why does it look
Who
like
cares, man? They're stupid. The Dolphins need to be in here. So, oh, the Bengals. The Bengals are the other
oh
team I'm missing. Who you have at 25, but man, after that game in Denver, like they can't be.
no, no, I don't care. I don't care where the Bengals are. Part of me was on like the Jake Browning's an okay as a good backup and they'll still produce offensively and then no, they got nothing. They
And
got
that's been the
nothing.
way it was in the past, but I don't know. Maybe it hurt them this year that Burrow was actually ready to go all training camp, all preseason. Browning didn't get as many reps.
Yeah, seriously. Totally the real issue there for sure.
So does
My
this seem
Dolph
okay with you? I did this without your consent, but
no, I'm
Bengals, Dolphins, Panthers, Saints, Titans.
that's fine. The Dolphins I don't even care about if I like anymore because two is just missing some wide open throws. Like they're not clicking. Now Tyreek's hurt. I will say though that if we were ranking power ranking uh Monday night uniforms,
Sick uniform.
those
Excellent
Miami
uniform.
uniforms, those black ones were
Incredible.
nasty. So
I
cool.
wish it matched their vibe at all, but it doesn't.
Right?
Um, but it's a great uniform. It's a
It was
fantastic
an
uniform.
unbelievable uniform. Absolutely.
2 weeks in a row, I'm ending on uniform talk. Let me see if I have any stats in here I want to give you. The Panthers, I almost had this team skyrocket after their blanking of the
Yep.
Falcons, but because they also had the close game against the Cardinals the week before where they put up 350 yards of total offense.
Yeah.
And then they get blitzed by New England. The advanced analytics hate them. And the fact that Ted McMillan has come in as a rookie and is so clearly a dude, just like a good wide receiver,
Yeah.
and it hasn't really helped their offense at all. It's
Right.
like, there's nothing here. So there's nothing I could say about that. The
For sure.
Dolphins, 1-3, and I know people will point to like the close game on Thursday night with the Bills. There were 8 real drives for the Dolphins in that game. The ninth one was the end of the game, the last 3 snaps.
Yeah.
4 of those 8 drives were 3-and-outs. 3 were touchdowns, and 1 was the interception. So like aside from putting like 3 decent drives together,
Yeah.
like it's nothing. It wasn't like a real back and forth. It was just like they were just getting touchdowns kind of just in time when they needed
It
them.
was not a, it
Um,
was one of those games where, yes, it was close, and yes, the Dolphins had an outside chance, but no one, there was no inclination that it was ever in jeopardy for the Bills. So,
yeah. And then the Bengals, it's just nothing without Burrow. Troy Aikman said it best, where it's just like you build your whole system and identity around this one guy, and you can't pivot out of that when he goes down, and you can't create like a facsimile of it when he's not around. They've done it in the past, but for whatever reason, right now it's not happening. And listen, it was a that Denver front is not who you want to play when you're the backup quarterback. So
right.
maybe they'll play a different. I don't have the schedule up anymore. But maybe they'll have a better or more
They
favorable
have.
matchup over the next couple of weeks with that. But like either way, like
Oh,
whatever,
no,
whatever.
they're screwed. They host Detroit, and then they go to Lambeau, and then they host the Steelers. So
Oh yeah, no, it's over.
they're
It's
toast.
it's yeah, it's not the way you want it. Um, all right, let me make sure I have everything lined up here for the finale of this episode. So we had Browns, Bengals, Dolphins, because we had the Giants above the Falcons. Browns at 27,
Browns at 27, Bengals
Browns at
28.
27.
Yeah.
All right, let's show the fans, let's show the listeners. We didn't quite do our 90 minutes of last time, but we had a lot. We had actual games to talk about. Only 10 minutes more. I'm still happy with that. Here's our top half, everybody. Um, we had 15 of the same 16 teams here when we did this. A little bit of rearranging, but the Rams are a big mover, up 4 in this group. The Jags, I think, also moved up 4 or 5 spots. The Seahawks moved up 5 spots.
Chargers
But
into the
every
top 10.
Chargers into the top 10 moved up 5 or 6 spots as well. This next group here, the Colts were moving up 11, 12 spots here. So that's a big one for them. Patriots and Bears both move up 3. Bengals obviously big fallers with the Burrow injury. But everything else, man, pretty much as expected. So I felt like with those top half teams, it was like we saw the path for these teams to all be pretty good, and we just got some positive confirmation. Um, the Colts are obviously the big surprise of the season so far. We'll see
Yep.
if they can kind of maintain or even maybe get a little bit better as that defense improves. And then the young quarterbacks, Penix and JJ, Caleb, Drake May. How does Jay Daniels look when he comes back? Can Bo Nix become anything this year? We'll see how the young quarterbacks impact these rankings as well. Anything else for you before we wrap?
No, it was fun. I'm just proud of us for how close we were on our lists from the get-go. That was impressive.
And there wasn't that one. There's usually one, even when we're close, there's usually
Yes.
one team we're
There's
super
usually
off
one
on,
team
and
where
you know
we're
that.
miles away, but
You've finally given up on the Dolphins, and that's the reason why we didn't have that issue.
hey,
Once again,
if they go 3-1 in the next four, they're going into the top 16. You can't
there's
stop me.
no chance. There's no chance. We will skip power rankings next month, and you can just talk about the Vikings for like 90 minutes. If that happens.
Okay.
All right. You're like, I don't want to do that. They'll be 0-4, and you'll have to do it, and then you'll be real bummed.
Wentz
Um,
MVP season.
Oh, Lordy. All right. So, Box Score Network, one more shout out. If you're here on YouTube, thank you all so much for being here. Check out the Box Score Network YouTube as well. Subscribe, like, comment, all those things. Let us know what you think of our rankings. If we're so stupid for having the Ravens above the Chargers at 1-3 versus 3-1, we would love to hear that and talk about it. But check out these other pods as well. Josh, thank you once again for being here. Can't wait to
Absolutely.
do this again at our midway point next month already. So that's going to be fun. Everyone,
Yeah.
until then, enjoy the games. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. Enjoy the weekend. We will talk to you soon. Have fun and be safe out there.